Providence, Rhode Island, December 13th, 2025. It was the height of finals week, a time of intense focus, late-night coffee, and the shared anxiety of thousands of students. In a first-floor classroom of the Barus and Holley engineering building, a group of students had gathered for an economics review session. They were looking at graphs and formulas, calculating their futures. But at 2:15 p.m., the future was violently cut short. 48-year-old Claudio Manuel Neves Valente entered the room. He didn't say a word. He didn't look for a professor. He opened fire on the students. In an instant, the academic sanctuary became a scene of absolute carnage, leaving 19-year-old Ella Cook and 18-year-old Mohammed Aziz Umurzakov dead, and 9 others clinging to life. Who was Claudio Valente? To the current students, he was a total stranger. But to the university's database, he was a ghost from a different era. Valente was a Portuguese national who had arrived at Brown 25 years ago with high hopes. He was a PhD student in the physics department from 2000 to 2001. Those who knew him then described him as brilliant but irritable, a man who looked down on the curriculum, complaining it was too easy. But the brilliance didn't save him. He took a leave of absence, failed to return, and was officially withdrawn by 2003. For over 2 decades, he remained in the shadows of society as a permanent resident, while his resentment towards the institution that represented his greatest failure grew into a lethal obsession. Claudio Valente was a brilliant mind from Italy, a man who lived in the world of numbers. But for 20 years, he stayed in the shadows as a perpetual PhD student. To the university, he was a fixture. To his advisor, Professor Cornelius Elshoff, he was a ghostwriter. They say that in physics, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. For 2 decades, Claudio absorbed the pressure, the late nights, and the stolen credits. He was a pressure cooker with no release valve. Until that morning. This wasn't just a random act of a broken mind. It was a calculated strike against excellence itself. 2 days after the blood was spilled at Brown, the terror spread to Cambridge, Massachusetts. On December 15th, Professor Nuno Loureiro, a world-renowned physicist at MIT, was shot and killed in Brookline. The connection was chilling. Valente and Loureiro had been classmates in Lisbon, Portugal decades ago. One had become a titan of science, the other a forgotten dropout. Valente's motive wasn't a recent argument. It was a 20-year-old debt of ego he decided to collect in blood. He had spent weeks stalking the campus, a phantom lurking in the corridors of his own past, preparing to solve his life's failures with the only tool he had left: violence. 2:15 p.m., December 13th, 2025. The sun was beginning its early winter descent over Providence. Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, now 48 years old, stood at the threshold of the Barus and Holley building. To any passing student, he was just another face in the crowd, perhaps an older researcher lost in thought. But Claudio was no longer calculating particles. He was measuring the distance between his failed past and the violence of his present. He checked his watch. Every movement was calm, deliberate, and chillingly normal. He wasn't a man running on adrenaline. He was a man executing a script he had been writing in his mind for over 20 years. He stepped inside, heading for the first-floor classroom where the economics review was in session. The silence of the exam week was shattered. Claudio didn't target the professors first. He targeted the students, the very symbols of the future he had lost. 19-year-old Ella Cook and 18-year-old Mohammed Aziz Umurzakov were the first to fall. It was a chaotic, heart-wrenching scene that left 9 others wounded. But for Claudio, this was only the first variable in his lethal equation. As the first 911 calls flooded the Providence dispatch, he didn't hide. He didn't turn the gun on himself there. Instead, he used the initial chaos as a human shield, slipping out of the building and blending into the winter fog, moving toward a second, even more personal target. 2 days later, the terror spread to Cambridge. On December 15th, Professor Loureiro of MIT was found murdered in Brookline. The investigation revealed a haunting truth. Decades ago, Valente and Loureiro had been classmates in Lisbon, Portugal. They had started their journey together, but while Loureiro reached the pinnacle of global science, Valente had become a dropout, a man living in the shadows of his own resentment. This wasn't a random killing. It was the systematic execution of the life Valente felt was stolen from him. The same weapon that stained Brown University with blood had now silenced one of the world's leading physicists. The manhunt ended on December 18th in Salem, New Hampshire. Police tracked Valente to a local storage facility, a place designed for forgotten things. Inside Unit 402, the search reached its grim conclusion. Valente was found dead, having taken his own life on December 16th. He died in a cold, metallic box, surrounded by the only things he had left: his anger and the 2 handguns that had terrorized 2 of the world's most prestigious universities. There was no manifesto, no grand explanation. Only the cold, hard fact that a man who couldn't balance his own life had decided to end the lives of others. Today, the halls of Barus and Holley are repaired, but the ghosts remain. Ella, Muhammad, and Professor Loureiro were victims of a resentment that spanned a quarter of a century. Claudio Valente proved that a mind capable of understanding the universe can still be consumed by the darkest of human emotions. This has been a Crimson Files investigation. We honor the fallen by unsealing the truth. If you want to see the deeper analysis of the evidence found at the scene, subscribe and join us for the next dossier. The file on Claudio Valente is now closed.